Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. This is Adobe Live and I'm thrilled to be presenting this session on 6 steps to achieve social media success. We're going to dive straight into the deck today because there is a lot of information coming your way over the next 50 or so minutes. And you'll notice that I'm on my own today. I've lost my wonderful co-host Jordan. So unfortunately, you've just got me for today's session. So I've packed it full of social media goodness. So I really hope that you're going to enjoy some of these tips and tricks over these next 50 minutes. So let's fire up the deck and let's dive straight into it. So let's get the boring bit out of the way with. Let's do the intro. If we've not met yet, I'm Andy. I'm one of the product managers here at Adobe working on Adobe Express. My background has always been in social media. So for the last 7 or so years, as one of the founders of a company called ContentCal, which was a social media management product. So to build a product like that in the social media space, you've kind of got to pay pretty close attention to how to succeed on social media. So we grew that business over the course of 7 or so years using social media as the primary engine to build that business, of which Adobe acquired in December of 21. So what I then did was kind of encapsulated all the learnings from that rather crazy journey in a book called Social 3.0. And over the course of that last 7 years and into Adobe, I spent my whole time studying what it takes to succeed on social media. And having come from a small business background where you're kind of resource constrained, etc., the bit that I've paid particularly close attention to is how can you make social media work for you as a smaller business, as a freelancer, as a solopreneur, basically someone that doesn't have all of the time in the world to study the latest trends and changes and what's happening in the world of social, someone that actually just needs to grow their business. How can you make social media manageable and practical? And that's really what I wanted to focus on over the course of the next kind of 45 or so minutes today. So what we're going to talk about over the next 45 minutes is a 6-step content strategy that I think will help any business unlock social media success without devoting all of the time in the world to it. Because we know if you spent any time like reading, because there's no shortage of advice and education out there in the world of social media. If you've read any advice, you'll typically know that you need to be consistent, you need to be authentic, and you need to know your audience. We all get that, right? But like, how do we make all of that really practical? How do we boil it down into what do we need to do every day in order to take those small steps to be successful? And that's really what I want to break down today. Because I've spent all this time, as I said, studying it, understanding all of the complexity. Once you understand the complexity and you start to simplify it a little bit, because you understand it and you realize that there's actually some core things that you just need to do in order to achieve success, rather than having to know it and spend all and dedicate your life to figuring out social media. There's some really simple steps that you can follow, and that's what I want to unpack today. So let's start with the 6 social media golden rules. Before we get into these 6 steps, and we'll be breaking this down through some kind of like guidance and some frameworks, and we'll show you how to bring it to life as well. I'll also have a bunch of free social media templates to give to you as well. Basically, consider today a toolkit for you to take away and implement as part of a strategy and give you all of the things that you need to be in order to be successful. Right, that's enough preamble. Let's get into it. These are the 6 non-changing rules. As I said, in the world of social media, you would think that it changes all the time. There's new features, there's new changes, there's all of the craziness that's happening, both with Twitter and TikTok at the moment. Underneath all of that kind of craziness that you see reported in the media, there's actually really 6 simple core rules that we just need to keep front and center of our mind, because these aren't just social media rules. These are rules of marketing, really. So if we think about these and have these as our guiding principles, that means we're going to root all of our social media strategy in a really nice, consistent framework that is engineered to help us succeed. So let's talk about number 1. Scaling word of mouth is our ultimate ambition. Word of mouth has and always will be the most successful marketing tactic for a simple reason. It's the way that we make decisions as humans. We typically trust things that others that we also trust have recommended us, right? Peer referrals have always been the most successful way to grow a business, and social media helps you light a fire under that. So we need to be thinking about that point 1. How can we use social media to get more people to talk about us? It's not just about what we put in our feeds, it's about what other people say about us. Because at the end of the day, that's what a brand is. Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not around. That's where social media is incredibly powerful for brand building. Collaboration increases opportunity. The more that you work with other people, so people that might run communities in your space or creators that lots of people that you're trying to also target appeal to, finding those individuals that you can work with and collaborate with will increase your opportunity, not just in terms of like the quality of content that you'll create, but in terms of those opportunities to potentially co-create content together. And that really helps us extend the reach of our content. We're going to go into that in a bit more detail when I start to put this strategy together over the next few slides. Participation increases engagement, putting our audience at the center of all of the content that we create. And whenever we think about creating anything, we need to be thinking audience first, because the more that we can drive participation on our content, which in its simplest form might just be people commenting on your content, or it might be you mentioning certain individuals to get their input and take on something that you're creating. The more that you can increase participation, the more that you'll drive engagement on your content. So think about just making sure we have simple questions at the end of each of our posts to encourage people to interact. And we'll show you some kind of like step-by-step ways that you can build the perfect caption for your content as we go on through this session today. Then engagement drives reach. We always talk about social media algorithms and we make it sound like really complex and mysterious sometimes, but it's not. It's actually quite simple. The more that people interact with your content, particularly commenting, the more your content will be seen by others. For example, if I comment on someone's post on LinkedIn, my followers will see that I've commented on this individual's post, which means that individual whose post I've commented on will grab a whole new audience and see new views and new reach on their content. So that applies to every single platform: TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, you name it, all of them. So the more that we drive engagement on our content, the more our reach will grow. And then reach drives awareness. So reach basically means the amount of people that see our content. So basically how big and how wide can we make this message go? Reach drives engagement. So point 5 here. So reach drives awareness. And what we mean by awareness is, in typical marketing terms, people need to see a message 7 times before they become cognitively aware of it. So what that means is, in marketing terms, forgive me for one kind of little bit of like marketing-y word, is like awareness is all about mental availability. And what that means is that when an individual has a problem or needs a certain solution, your product or service is first to mind when they're faced with that problem or that dilemma that they're facing. So awareness is all about making sure that we are first to mind when our potential customer has a particular need or a problem or whatever. And we do that by ensuring that we get as many people commenting on our content, we drive reach as far as it can possibly go. And that means that people see our content again and again. And when we see things multiple times, we become aware of it. We then kind of maximize our mental availability. Basically, it becomes first to mind when we need that thing, whether it's product or service or whatever. And that then goes to point 6, which is in most people's eyes, the best product is the one they know. And that really, this simplifies the whole marketing methodology really, is that the more that people see something, the more that people see others in their network talking about a certain thing, it's then automatically perceived as the best product. Whether it has the feature set or whether it's objectively the best or not, it doesn't matter. It's the way that humans make decisions. When we see lots of things or the same thing being spoken about in our social circles a lot, we immediately associate that with a trusted, a brand, and something that we would recommend. And it all ties back to point 1 about that whole kind of word of mouth thing. So the kind of golden rules here is just put our audience at the center of all of the content that we are going to create. And in anything we create, think about how we are going to drive other people to interact with that content. So they are the 6 golden rules, and that is the kind of the foundation that we're going to build all of our social strategy on. So now let's get into it. Because we're putting the audience at the center of everything that we do, these are the 6 steps that we're going to go through. And it all starts with setting our goals. Now, we could spend an hour talking about goal setting, but actually this session's all about simplifying things. So in fact, there are only 4 questions you need to ask yourselves. Very simple questions when it comes to setting your goals. Number 1, what do you want to achieve? And this doesn't actually mean anything in terms of your social strategy. This is all about making sure you're consistent with this, because even the most successful social media creators or people with big followers or have posts that go viral all the time, it might appear like it was an overnight success. I can guarantee you it wasn't. This is all about consistency. And once we set a goal, we set a North Star of what we want to achieve, it's important for us to make sure that we stay consistent with it, because social media is not a short-term fix. We're not going to suddenly fire up this strategy and see our sales double by tomorrow. It doesn't work that way, but it's so essential when it comes to building our brand over the long term, as we'll talk about as we go through this session. So it becomes really important to make sure that we've got a goal that we really want to achieve, that we write it down. Your goal might change over time, but making sure you're always aware of what you're trying to achieve will help you stick with this. I mean, it's like any form of practice or habit. We need to have our kind of desired end state in mind, so then we can be consistent to achieve and work towards that end game. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, who do I want to care? So it's just a really nice way of phrasing, like, who actually cares about what I'm going to say? And phrasing it like that makes us think about, our approach being audience first. So I put here minimum viable audience. I've spoken about this before. If you've been on previous Adobe live streams, you would have seen this. But minimum viable audience is all about focusing on the smallest possible audience that will sustain our growth over the short term. Basically, niching down might be another way of explaining it. Ultimately, we want to focus so intrinsically on people that we know that we solve a really tangible problem for. And the more that we can focus on our minimum viable audience, the more that, everything we just spoken about, like word of mouth, like shareability, the more that people start to kind of maximize that mental availability that we were talking about. When you focus on a smaller audience, you more intrinsically understand the problems and the challenges and their kind of day-to-day life. It means you can serve better content that resonates, content that builds trust, content that's inherently shareable. And when you focus on that minimum viable audience, it means your word of mouth grows quicker. But then why do they care? I've touched on this already just a moment ago. Why should they care? And once again, making sure that everything we're creating is audience first. And I would definitely recommend writing down just a few points to each of these questions. What problems do your audience face? What are the things that they're struggling with? How can you help them? And then what do you want to be known for? Quite an existential question, but one that I think is so important. As I said, your brand is what people say about you when you're not around. How do you want to be perceived? And thinking about this question along with these other 3 will really help you shape your strategy and your plan. Because when you're like, I want to achieve follower growth, I care deeply about small business owners who are struggling to grow their business. And I want to be known for assistance, guidance, and really practical advice to help small businesses grow. And when you frame it in that kind of example, it means you can kind of unleash all your content creation capabilities, because you're not flitting between one topic or the other, or you're not trying to figure out who you are and what you need to say. You've got crystal clear clarity around what it is or who you're trying to serve and what it is you're trying to do for that audience that you're trying to serve. So hopefully that makes sense. So we've spoken about some kind of core principles, and now we've started with step 1 of asking ourselves 4 really quite simple but very meaningful questions. So let me introduce you to the best content strategy. So best doesn't mean this is the only one you can use. There's lots of different approaches to content strategy, but best is a nice, easy way to remember the 4 key content pillars. So like I said, over studying social media strategies for years and years, this is kind of the boiled down approach to the minimum viable social media strategy. If you do this, this will help you improve your social media results day by day. So what is the best content strategy? So these are all content pillars. So BEST stands for bond, educate, showcase, and tell. Basically, these content pillars, consider this the framework of your content strategy. These pillars are everything that you build your content strategy around. Consider it like maybe the foundations of your content plan. And we'll go through what each of these means in a second, but this is a non-moving piece. So these pillars stay the same. And we'll talk in the next step about like how you structure your content plan around these pillars, but these pillars don't change. So starts with number one, bond, introduce and engage. Get people to know you, pull back the veil of the business, right? And that's where social media is super powerful, to really help humanize the business and engage, get people sharing, get people talking, help people understand the human behind the business, whatever it is that you represent. Then educate, adding value. We've spoken about trying to understand the problems that your audience face, understanding those and understanding, what you want to be known for, how you can help your audience address those problems. This is all about building trust through providing value. As I said, like trust is the number one emotion that drives all buying behavior and drives, your word of mouth, drives people sharing you. When people trust you and trust the content and the value that provide, they're more likely to share you with others. And when people get things shared by others that they trust, naturally, word of mouth grows that way. Then showcase. It's all about demonstrating our expertise. We're going to go through these one by one and defining the action you want your followers to take. So this is the most kind of, the tell content is the most kind of salesy pillar here. This is much more kind of direct response, whether you're, directing people to a certain like live stream like we're doing today, a podcast, a webinar, or you have a particular sale that you want or a product launch that you want to draw attention to. But the point is that I see lots of people starting with this final pillar here, this kind of more selling orientated one. So this tell pillar on the right hand side, without putting the groundwork in place with the other pillars of bond, educate, and showcase, particularly bond and educate. As I said, content should all be audience first. And for everything that I've spoken about with those 6 golden rules of social, helping people engage and share it with others, that's all going to be driven by the bond and educate content. So all of these pillars, like 4 legs on a table, they're all essential to help a strategy stand up. So now we understand the goals, we understand our 4 pillars. Now we want to talk about the topics for our content, right? Because within each of these pillars, there's going to be a whole bunch of topics that we can talk about. So forgive me while the slides get distinctly unexciting at this point, but feel free to screenshot these. And also it's worthwhile saying at this point, Cody will probably share it in the chat in a second, a link to these slides as well. So you can just view these at your leisure if you need to. And also a link to where a recording of this session will be and all of the slides as well. So that's on our Substack, of which you get kind of a monthly email of all of the changes and updates and trends and social media strategy advice. So a link to our Substack as well will be on there. So anyway, excuse that segue, let's get back to it. So bond, introduce and engage. This is the primary and the first content pillar we're going to focus on. 3 types of content that we can work on here. And I'm going to give you a whole bunch of free templates as well in the next couple of slides that help you build content off all of these. But either way, like I said, this is like, consider this session like a social media strategy in a box. Number 1, prompt, share your story. Like I said, pulling back the veil of the business. So encouraging your followers to share personal stories related to your brand and industry. So this isn't just about sharing your story, right? Which will be a part of it, but also like using these as prompts to encourage others to share their story, making your customers or your followers the hero of the story. And that really is a very kind of different way of thinking about social media to how we've typically thought about it. Is that many people see social media akin to their email list as like another place to distribute their content. In fact, this is more of an opportunity to get input from others. So here's some suggested prompts here, like, what encourage both you or your followers to start your journey in their niche. Biggest achievements, what the challenge you face and how you overcame them. Those stories, they're uniquely human. We're hardwired to engage deeply with stories, and stories are the things that are most memorable. Marketing messages are instantly forgettable. It's the stories that create that emotional connection. And like I said, all buying decisions in the end are driven by emotion, not rationality. So the more that you can give people a kind of, an attachment to you and your business, that all starts by sharing those kind of human stories, which we all face as individuals. Point 2 could be creator spotlights. I spoke about earlier in the 6 golden rules of like collaboration increases opportunity, but like, what does that really mean? So naturally, there's going to be a lot of individuals in your space, whether you're, a baker, or whether you run a flower shop, or whether you're a social media specialist. There will be people in your space that have large audiences related to the specific topic that you're focused on. So what you could do is create content to encourage people to come check out you and your page, etc. But what you could also do is work with others to help get your content into new places. So it might be Facebook groups, it might be Reddit or Discord, or wherever these kind of communities hang out. Finding those creators that run those communities is a really important step in building really close partnerships between, you and your audience, right? So this isn't just a social media strategy. This is like a good business strategy. Build those connections with the people that are in your space. But the best way to start those connections and build them is by showing your appreciation for, so let's say there's someone that runs a Facebook group in your space that is, that creates really good content. Then why don't you create a spotlight for them? Why don't you post about like why you like them, why other people should follow them? Make sure you tag them, obviously. But what you do there is, shine a spotlight, make other people, make that creator feel good. That will give you an opportunity to strike up deeper conversations with that individual, and ideally partner with them later on. And when I say partner with them, it might be co-authoring a podcast or doing an interview with them. All of that stuff that really kind of makes for better, deeper content, because you've got other people's input in your content, right? So it's not just all you and your input. Hopefully that makes some sense. Then number 3, behind the scenes. Again, like I said, showing your humble beginnings, showing where it started, giving a tour of your workspace and studio, show your process for coming up with ideas or different types of new recipes if you're, in the food and beverage industry, new products maybe, whatever it is, basically like showing what it's like behind the scenes in your business. Again, to my earlier point of like those kind of human connections, those stories. And that's the stuff that's genuinely interesting. It's the thing that helps people understand you more uniquely as a business. And that's where social media is super powerful to humanize our business. So that's a few ideas around kind of bond-orientated content. So let's talk about educate. Once again, building trust by adding value. So I would say this is my favorite content pillar. This is the pillar that I have most enjoyment or derive most enjoyment for creating content around, because this is the stuff where you can really feel like you're making a difference. And one thing I will say about this, like a bit of a call out, is that so many people don't feel like they've got the right or the authority to kind of educate or, share their experience with others or tell people how things should be done. A lot of kind of inferiority complex or, imposter syndrome typically stops people by saying, who am I to share this or tell people how it's done? Let me assure you, there are so many people that would value or get huge value out of the things that you have to share around your experience, the things that you've seen. We all have a unique perspective. We've all been through different experiences. And this is where social media can be super powerful in helping other people see the world through our eyes as well, to give us deeper perspectives, different angles on certain things. So that's just a quick call out to say, don't get in your own way with sharing this kind of content. Anyway, a few examples, like top 5 content. Always love this. Top 5 tips, tools, trends, your top mistakes, top success stories, really quick, digestible content that helps if, your target audience will look at that and go, that really resonates with me because these are the problems I've been facing. Once again, goes back to making sure you know who you're trying to serve, minimum viable audience, and the kind of things that they're struggling with. So this really goes into the point of how do we add as much value as possible, because we know the people in our space will be struggling with these things, and we've got some ideas how they can overcome these certain challenges. Similar things with like how-tos. We can think more broadly about how-tos, like, how to start a business like ours, how to solve a certain problem in our niche, how to use a certain product in our space. That's really, really useful. you know, how even down to like, how do we organize and prioritize? How do we run our day? That kind of thing. So anything that you've kind of you've developed in your own experience and going through building your business, this can be a really, really useful thing for others to see. So how to, super useful. And favorite fives, once again, super valuable, because we're all looking for inspiration, you know, best quotes, best books, best influencers, resources, those things. All of that is packaged up in some really useful bite-sized tips that, you know, will appeal directly to your target audience. Now, on to Showcase. Let me do a quick time check, see how we're doing. On to Showcase. Work in progress. Super useful feature or content area to really demonstrate your expertise. Kind of enroll your audience in the journey. And that's the way I would kind of describe this stuff. So sharing a day in the life, sharing kind of progress updates. This has become very popular at the moment of what's known as building in public, people documenting their journey in their business, where they publicly say, you know, I'm trying to get to X many subscribers or, you know, achieve this revenue or whatever, and here's how I'm doing it. It's following along that journey is incredibly, you know, powerful as like a content theme. People feel connected to it. They feel invested in you because, like I said, it's like a story. It's like following the main character of a story. It might feel self-indulgent, but it's not. It's like, as long as it's presented in a way that, you know, here's what I'm learning, right? Here's all of the value that I'm providing on my way to achieving whatever it might be. Like same with like challenges and setbacks, because it isn't all about success and kind of us posturing to say, you know, how well we're doing. It's about saying, you know, these are the things that I've struggled with. These are the things that, you know, we didn't get right first time around. Here's how I've learned from them. So work in progress is a really nice way of kind of very softly promoting, because we're talking about our business. We're talking about the things that we're creating, but we're not objectively or outwardly selling it. And then reviews. So reviews can be super powerful because they're a nice way to let others do the selling for you in that way. So this can be a fantastic way of, like, you know, making sure you're encouraging your audience to share how they use your product or service or whatever it is. Because when they share, when they, being your customers or users, share how they use your product or service, this makes for perfect what we call user-generated content, basically representing who is actually using our product. And like I said, through kind of word of mouth and sharing, encouraging others to share their experience of your product is much more powerful than anything we could say ourselves. But I think we all understand this kind of stuff. Client testimonials, case studies, comparison reviews, expert reviews, and product demos all work really well within this kind of showcase element, demonstrating our expertise, highlighting our credibility, but ultimately, you know, very softly selling. And then finally, on the tell side of the pillar, here's a bunch of content ideas that will work in here. I won't spend too long here because it's probably the most self-explanatory, but like teasing product launches, things that are coming up, collaborating with potential influencers or creators in the space. But in any case, right, and this is one kind of thing that I would say when it comes to more direct selling on social media, even if you are about to launch a product, which is, you know, useful and great, but represent that post in a way that presents it in a very kind of human way. And, you know, to give you an example, let's say you've got a product launch coming up next week or coming out tomorrow. The way, rather than saying, oh, super excited, new products dropping tomorrow, you know, comment here or whatever it might be like, you know, I'm humbled, and I've been like, this could be another example. Like, I'm really humbled about all of the enthusiasm we've had over this upcoming product launch. And it's been a crazy 6 months to get here, lots of ups and downs, but I'm thrilled and nervous in equal measure to be releasing this product next week. Who's interested to find out more? Something like that. But ultimately, it's representing the story that sits behind the message. And I think hopefully that makes some sense in the way I've described it. That is really the way that we should be thinking about social media, like really pulling back the human story across anything that we want to tell, even when it's in this kind of tell pillar and it's more kind of outwardly direct response, sales messaging orientated. We're packaging it up in something that's uniquely human. Cool. All right, then. So let's do a quick check-in, because we're now 3 out of the 6 steps down. So we understood our goals, our 4 really quick questions to understand our goals. Then we looked at the best content strategy. So we call these content pillars. So bond, educate, showcase, and tell. And then we went through a bunch of content ideas or topics that sit underneath each of these pillars. Cool, right. So now we've got a framework. So how then do we use this framework? And this is the way that I would suggest putting it together. So whilst you could kind of reorganize this and you don't have to sit with this kind of posting frequency, this is how it could potentially break down. So this is how a month would look. Like I said, those pillars are constantly repeating: bond, educate, showcase, tell. It doesn't change. So they become the consistency. And I think this is really important because it means that we're not scrabbling around or trying to think about, oh, what should I post today? Or should I post this? And I understand why I certainly feel a lot of anxiety sometimes when you're thinking about, oh, what should I post tomorrow or the next day? All of that anxiety goes away when you've got consistency built around these pillars. So here I've left kind of one space, and whether you fill it or not doesn't really matter, but like it's nice to be able to be flexible to respond to, things that you might have seen in your industry or news or whatever. So, that Friday is content of choice, but every week follows the same pattern. And then underneath each of these pillars is one of your topics that we spoke about earlier. All of these ones that I've used as an example are all of the topics based on those content ideas that we were just talking about on the last few slides here. So you can see how it all kind of breaks down to a really consistent and easy to manage program where your pillars don't change. Underneath each of those pillars, there's one of these topics of which you could choose from one of the suggested topics, and feel free to come up with your own as well. But to go one step further, because as I said, this is a social media strategy in a box for you. We've created all of those content ideas I've just gone through as post templates. So here is where we'll start to go into Adobe Express and use it here. So like I said, we're going to share all of these slides and the recording, of which I think Cody will have shared in the chat already. And here is the next thing I'm going to share with you, these free social media templates. You don't have to use them. They're purely there to give you the jump start on building this plan and starting to create a month's worth of content. And as I've done here, I've put it to a daily posting frequency, as you can see here, right? You don't have to post every day, but it is clear from spending a lot of time researching this, the more you post, the better your results will be and the faster your growth will be, right? Not everyone wants to post every day, and totally get that. You do you, and you define what's best for you. But in terms of the best thing that you can do from what I've seen, typically posting in mornings works the best, and posting every day is the way to drive that consistency. So working those templates here, or working these pillars rather, will give you that opportunity to be consistent. And because creating that much content is a little bit challenging, right? That's a lot to create. We wanted to give you some tools and some kind of templates to make that much easier. So here we go. Let's go ahead and click into this. And let's go ahead and look at this library. So hopefully you can see this on the screen now. So this is free for anyone to use. The link Cody will put in the chat if she hasn't already. Then that gives us an opportunity to start using all of these kind of pillars and topics that I've just spoken about here. You'll notice that in each of these templates, you'll notice that it's got kind of bond, educate, showcase. So it's all organized across these pillars that we've spoken about. As you can see here, things that we've highlighted like creator spotlight, where it started, post, behind the scenes, those kind of things are all in here to give you a bit of a starting point. Whether you want to use these templates, remix them, do whatever you want with them. But hopefully the whole idea here is just to unlock a bit of inspiration, unblock any kind of writer's block that you might have, and basically create something that is kind of a lot easier and more manageable to do on a daily basis. So what I would recommend you doing is you could either follow the library so you can see when any new template has been added, or you could just copy the whole thing wholesale to your libraries here. And that all then sits in Adobe Express. So talking about Adobe Express, for those of you that are not familiar with Adobe Express, it is your template orientated creation tool that allows you to create content far more quickly, right? So Here, not only could you create stuff from scratch, you can search across a whole range of different templates. So for example, if you're on a coffee shop, you could just go ahead and search for coffee and start building content off that using these templates and modifying them appropriately. But in this instance, right, we don't want to create from scratch. We don't even want to create from a template. We actually want to create based on these pillars and topics. So, which means we simply just use our libraries here because we would have copied our content inspiration into there. So making sure we've hit the follow library or copy to libraries, doesn't really matter. Copy either of those, and then let's start working with that content. But before we do, we just need to do one extra thing in Adobe Express. So you'll notice down the left-hand side, and this is available even if you're using the free plan as well, just go ahead and press this schedule button. This will then open up the Adobe Express content scheduler. You'll notice that I've got quite a lot of stuff in here already. So let's go ahead and look from the 1st of April, actually. So let's go ahead and look at a month's worth of content, which we've got here. So what you're going to notice is that I've got a bunch of these posts in blue representing these content pillars. So this is what I like to do, is kind of build my month content plan so I know what I'm doing. And like I said, these pillars don't move. So we're going to carry on using these. And actually, as a bit of a shortcut, I'm going to hit the duplicate post button, move this to following week, select draft post, and here, because I'm just duplicating this, I'm just going to make sure we got the educate one here. I'll do the same for showcase. It's just going to duplicate that and put that at the following week in April. Actually, you know what? Let's do the same here. And you'll notice that I can just drag and move it across here. I love drag and drop. Moving things around always fills me with joy. Just go ahead and do the same here for tell content. There we go. Pop that here and drag that there. So we've got a whole month's worth of content kind of planned just based around these pillars. So once again, like I said, like the whole kind of guesswork around what we need to talk about on each individual day has gone away, right? Because we know these are the 4 pillars we need to work to. We know it's in line with the 6 golden rules of social. We know it's in line with the 4 questions that we've defined that we want to know from our audience. So just within that, we now need to start filling it with those topics that we've just been speaking about. So let's go back to that inspiration library that we've spoken about. And you don't need to start from here as well, but if you find it easier to, all good. But we're going to start from a where it started post. So I'm going to click create from. So this is what you can do when you look at these libraries. You can just use this as a bit of inspo, and then you can start working with this content. Now, what I have done here at this point, I've used this all as like square. So you'll notice that everything in this inspiration library is of square orientation. So if you like to do things quickly, which I am in that camp, I put square content on every single social network because square looks good on LinkedIn and Insta, looks good on Twitter. It looks fine on every platform. So square is like a really nice go-to layout to make sure it looks good on every platform. But I appreciate there are a lot of people that would rather it be kind of optimized for each individual network, right? And that's where resize is your friend as well. So you can just hit resize and you can be like, all right, I want that as an Insta story. I want that as a Facebook post. So if you want to optimize it for that, resize one click and it'll be resized for different formats as well if you want to. So, you've got the choice there and it's just one click away. Anyway, I digress again. So we're on this where it started post because we know we want to create some bond orientated content, and we know where it started post is a good one to start with. You'll notice when you work with any of these ideas, it's got a bit of a suggestion, an idea for you, so a prompt. So this is the brand origin post. What we're going to do, obviously we understand that now. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. So because it's kind of like a generic picture of a laptop, so we need to replace this image for something that's more relevant to us, right? Because we all, got started somewhere different. So this replace feature is super useful because we can go, right, I hit the replace button. We're going to upload the photo. So there's a photo of my office and where it started. And then what we can do is start working with this a little bit, maybe modifying it a little bit, make this a little bit bigger if we want to. There we go. Or that's not the best. Let's go ahead and make that a bit smaller. There we go. Let's go with that. Let's bring that up a little bit. And maybe let's use some filters on this too. So a bit of grayscale. There we go. So you can see how quick it is to work with ideas. So whether you want to build from templates, whether you want to build from like one of the largest stock image libraries I've ever seen, of incredible quality too, I might add. So all of that's here, but these kind of like these ideas in this library are just there to just get that spark of creativity going. So you can start thinking, actually, you know what? I know what topic I'm going to post about today. So once we're kind of done with playing about with this, we can then just share it straight into our social plan. So the joy of having a kind of content scheduler is that we don't have to do this every day, right? We don't have to like prepare our content and post it in the day. We can get well ahead of it because we know the pillars and the topics we want to talk about ahead of time. So all we've got to do is fill in the gaps in our content plan. So what we're going to do here is press the share button, going to hit schedule. So cool, hitting schedule. This then takes what we've just created and puts it in content scheduler. So we know that we want to put out this content tomorrow because this is where we've planned the bond pillar for. We can see it kind of underneath here as well. So a bit of a reminder. Here's the media we've just created. So super simple. How quick was that from like an idea in a library that we can just take and we can run with. Now we can publish this across multiple channels as well. So here we've got different options for each individual network as well. So you'll notice that because when we clicked Instagram, we see it got a bit bigger. So it means that we can add a first comment on Instagram. So it's kind of a unique feature. But what is super useful about this is that we can take this one piece of content and push it across every single platform without having to do this individually. Basically create once and publish everywhere. So first comments are quite useful for any additional copy we want to put in the content, but we don't want it in the caption, maybe additional hashtags, maybe some links, whatever we want to do. First comment's really useful for that. But in the caption, let's go ahead and add something here. I've kind of created something already here. So I've cheated and created a caption. We'll talk more about captions in a second, actually, because there's a bit of a good and best practice guide to captions. So there we go. Like I've been saying all throughout this, kind of created it in much more like a human lens, something that's represents a lived experience, something that represents the kind of emotion behind how something or seeing a picture might make you feel. And it's once again, it's those stories that connect people. This is bond-oriented content, right? It's connecting and engage. And when we're talking about engage, when I said right from the start about those kind of 6 golden rules of social, like engagement drives reach, of course, for every single question, we want to or every single piece of content, every caption we create, we want to be able to ask a question to encourage engagement, encourage dialogue in the comments thread. Cool. So with that, we are done. We can obviously @mention people if we want to. In this instance, I won't, but simply just by @mentioning here, whomever you want to tag, you can do that. So you'll see that you're also restricted to 30 hashtags on Instagram as per Instagram's rules. So this also does help you kind of stay within the confines and the realms of, what network, or the kind of requirements of each network and the best practices really. Cool. So I'm going to put this on Facebook as well. Now, I'm not going to put it on Twitter for now because it's too many characters for Twitter. So if we put Twitter in, you'll see that I'm way over. So we're going to come back to that in a second. I'll show you how to kind of repurpose it. But anyway, for now, I think we're pretty much done. The only thing I would call out as well, useful to add alt text here. Alt text here is really useful for those that use screen readers that have visual impairments. So they get a visual description of the image here. So like a gray or black and white / grayscale image of a desk chair, for example. Yeah, well, it doesn't describe a very exciting image, admittedly. So anyway, here the caption's good. You'll notice that if you use tools like Grammarly as well, it kind of picks up spell check, which is very useful for me. Something that is always your friend as well. One of my favorite features here is preview. So you can see exactly what this is going to look like on each of the networks. Like I said, Square looks great. on every channel here. But of course, if you want to do a story, it wouldn't look good. So if you want to do an Instagram story, you can just use that resize feature that I showed you earlier. And with that, I like post to go out in the morning, so I'm just going to flip that to AM. So I prefer post to land at 9. This is the other good thing of scheduling, is because it doesn't just only mean that your content's going to go into multiple places at once. It also means that you can make sure you share it at the perfect time for your audience. So here we go. Put this in at 9 AM. Wonderful. So you see that we've got tomorrow it's bond orientated content. You'll see that all of the posts that we've created around that, created from that inspiration library as well. But I said earlier that I wanted to kind of put the Twitter post out as well. So here's my little kind of trick to do this, because that single piece of copy wasn't going to work across all networks given the 240 character restriction. I like to kind of create that core piece of content, the image and the copy across all networks to extend the reach of the content. And then what I simply do is just hit the duplicate post button and make that onto Twitter. Obviously, it's a bit too long. There we go. I'm going to adjust the copy a little bit. I would probably do a few more edits on that. Quick preview, see how it's going to look on Twitter. Happy with that. And there we go. Just schedule it. So there we go. We are now organized across all of our different channels. Quick duplication, a quick edit, and we can see that we know we've got tomorrow, it's all about bond content. We know that we want to do a where it started post, and here we go. We've easily repurposed this across multiple platforms. All right, I'm going to show one more example of that. And we've only got 10 minutes left, so I think that's probably perfect timing. I'm going to cover that and do a quick summary of how to create the best possible caption. So what we're going to do here, go back to that inspiration library that we spoke about earlier. And now, because we want to create some showcase content, so we're going to use one of these success story posts. So I'm going to click create from. So again, that's now going to open up that post template. Here we go. Cool. Quote posts, I find like a really nice and easy, like evergreen type of content to create, right? Really easy to do, easy to reuse and repurpose. Because don't forget also, like, when you've created a month's worth of content using this plan, you will be able to look at the things that have worked really well and reuse and repurpose. So it gets easier the more that you do, because you can start reusing some of your content. Don't feel like you ever just need to like post it once and never do it again. Definitely, look at the stuff that worked the best and then build on that, reuse, repurpose. So cool. Once again, we're going to use the replace function because we don't just want a random person. We're going to use my headshot. So I put this in this kind of like Twitter card here, Andy person, Andy Lambert is my name. So there we go. I'm going to do that. So once again, just making small edits to this little pre-saved template. So going ahead and put in my handle. And it's worthwhile saying, because I've put a lot of content out today and lots of talking from me today, so I haven't had a chance to answer any questions. If anyone has any questions, I'm always happy to answer them. Best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I think Cody might have shared my LinkedIn already, but just DM me on LinkedIn. I will respond to everyone. Cool. So with that as an aside, there we go. Pop that in. I've created a little quote here, which I'm just going to pop in this space. So there we go. We're just going to make that a little bit bigger so it fills the space a little bit. Oops. And there we go. I'm just going to carriage return that just so that's a little bit more readable. Cool. Really simple, nice, easy quote post. They always work well on social, once again, in this square format. But something I also really like with this, because you can create lots of this type of content again and again. So if you really want to get ahead of the game from your content creation perspective, you could duplicate this page. So you could create lots of quote posts for one to go out every couple of weeks, maybe, or once a month, whatever you want to do. So duplicating the page, just press this button, we create a duplicate of the page. We can use a different quote here. We'll press into the background and we'll choose a new background. Let's say we want a bit of, yellow on that one. And we can just flick through these different pages. So here's another one that I'd created as well earlier. So what we can do with each of these pages, each time we can just go ahead and share this. We're just going to choose to share this page only. We're going to go ahead and schedule it. Once again, goes back to this option here. And let's just quickly add a little quick caption once again. So I'm going to put it across all networks, going to keep the caption short. And I'm just going to use a little emoji. So I'll use an up arrow because emojis are always good at kind of, drawing attention to the caption. Once again, the first comment, alt text if we want to, up to you. Again, running our preview. There we go. All looks good. Perfect. So on that basis, we know we have content going out on Thursday. So we're going to do that and hit the schedule button. So you'll know, there we go. We got content going out. Actually, it was on Friday. Never mind. Good job. We got drag and drop. We can just go ahead and put that in. And similarly, like I said, we could go back to this, go to this next page, and let's do this one here because it's a different quote. Hit the share button again, hit schedule. So like I said, you can really start increasing the velocity of the content that you can create. And I'm just going to put caption here because I'm conscious I don't want to spend too long writing these captions. And we could do this because we know showcase content is happening on each Friday. We could just put this in for the Friday following, maybe. So there we go. We're going to go ahead and schedule that in. So there we go. You can see how quickly our content plan starts to shape up. Now we've got these pillars and topics and some of these post prompts that we can work towards, basically making us very consistent because we've got a really structured and actionable framework that we can work to. Very relatable because it's organized around our target audience because we built our customer persona based on those 4 questions that we started with. And it's there also to drive results. So everything puts the audience at the heart. It tells human-oriented stories. It pulls back the curtain of our business to create deeper connections. It's intrinsically shareable. It creates, ask questions at every one of these, within every one of these posts. Prompts engagement, which is all engineered to help you achieve those 6 golden rules that we started with in terms of social media. So eventually your content plan will start looking like this, where you've got all of your pillars mapped out, all of your content mapped out, and it all being automatically published across all of your multiple social channels. And as I said, we can start wrapping it all up with your analytics at the end of the month, where you can start evaluating the stuff that's worked really, really well. Cool. Quick caption checklist for you. I saw this, a guy called Matt Lehnhoff shared this, and I had to kind of bring it to everyone because I saw this. I was like, absolutely brilliant, because such an easy checklist for defining what a good caption looks like. So quick checklist for hitting publish. Is your hook intriguing enough? So your hook is the bit that sits before like the see more option on social media. So you'll always, like on Instagram, on LinkedIn, etc., you're going to always see like the first 10 or so words before you see the see more button. So those 10 words need to be absolutely killer. So that's what your hook is all about. So if you're ever struggling with like writing hooks, there are so many websites that help you with like hooks, etc., and how to write them as well. So basically, is your hook intriguing enough? Am I sharing a unique perspective? Because we built this all around the kind of best content pillars that we've been speaking about, it should have a unique perspective intrinsically, right? Because you're telling stories, you're putting audience at the heart of it. Have I seen similar posts recently? Ideally not, because it's all going to be around, your unique perspectives. And in format, send short sentences. Think about readability. Most of the time, your content is going to be read on mobile. So making sure we're using short sentences, carriage return between each individual sentence to maximize readability, maximize space, so is it easy to scan? That's where like emojis are really good to call out particular points, right? Because if you think, whenever you're spending time on social media, our time is limited. So we want to be able to both get a really important hook We want to tell a great story, but we want that story to unfold in a really concise manner. So as I said here, optimize for mobile, easy to scan. And then kind of like the bonus element, can I tag someone relevant? Like we were talking about earlier with community spotlights, tagging individual, highlighting those people that you really respect in the space, but use that tactic really judiciously, because tagging lots of people won't help you, will actually hinder you. So social networks are very mindful about you tagging too many people, because if those that you've tagged don't respond, it negatively impacts the reach of your content. So making sure that you're kind of using a person that is likely to respond as well. And then can you use someone else as an example? Examples are the things that really bring things to life. And once again, being able to shine a light on someone else that's doing something really particularly well, that's kind of non-competitive, is a really, really good place to be. So conscious that we're right at the end of the session here, and we have about a minute to spare. So I just want to firstly say thank you for making it this far. I'm conscious that I haven't been able to answer any questions over the last 55 minutes or so, but feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a DM on LinkedIn or Instagram, whatever is most suitable for you. I'm at Andy R. Lambert across all the platforms. And any particular questions that you have, I'm keen to hear them. Also, equally, don't forget to subscribe to our Substack as well, because you'll get both the recording of this, all of those social media templates and the inspiration, plus every single month we compile all of the things that you need to know in the world of social media and send that to your inbox. So nice and super easy. So basically we keep on top of social media so you don't have to. And I really hope that what we've gone through today over the last 55 minutes or so will really give you what I hope to achieve at the start of this session, a really nice structured, actionable playbook in order for you to achieve social media success in a really nice and simple way. So with that, I think we are about done. Feel free to fire in any other questions in the chat, and really, really excited to hear how you get on with it. And I'd love to hear from you, for those that have implemented the strategy and use some of these templates, how you get on with them, because that feedback really helps us improve. Other than that, thank you so much, everyone. I will see you next time. I'll be joined with my co-host again, so we can do lots more Q&A next time, but I will see you next time. Cheers. Bye-bye.